Get up, stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up for your rights.
Hello, PNN KXU 96.1. This is your youth poverty scholar, Solomon, and for our radio session today, I will be talking about the history of Poor Magazine, PNN KXU, Decolonize Academy, and Hopefulness, and everything else that goes in that category. I'm going to play a clip real quick. Oh my god. Get ready. Get ready for the nostalgia. These are early videos of Poor Magazine at the working. And this is the Youth Poverty Scholars' visions on what they would think hopefulness would look like. And as you will see soon, we incorporated actually some of the ideas if you've ever been to hopefulness. Hold on.
Tell me about your project.
Project is about a cafe.
If you see, the cafe is actually in the front, which is where we keep the cafe, and the barn's at the back, which is actually, and the townhouses along the side, and the play area in the middle. So we kind of still incorporated the ideas that us youth poverty scholars had, which was really great.
We have like houses. It's like.
And the whole Poor Magazine family was involved in building hopefulness. It wasn't just the adults planning. Everyone was involved.
It's like show how it's like not good to housing.
But to talk about the history of a 20-year plus journey that is still continuing in our never-ending battle for justice and peace, I must first talk about the collared, oppressed, homeless mama who sat there with her daughter in their broken down hoopty, having a discussion on how they're going to fix the doings of colonizers and police. This conversation with her teammate, her daughter, led to the dream of hopefulness. To start the dream, they first started by trying to get their story out to people, to reach out and inspire other poor collared people who are feeling down on themselves to tell their story and inspire them. Tiny and Dee started workshops and the writing of their first issue, Poor Magazine, Volume 1, 1996, right here. This is the first issue that they were working on for a very long time and tried really hard. A lot of hustle that went into printing a lot of those copies to get out there to help the poor people of color of the Bay Area to stand up and fight for their discrimination. Everything was kind of going to plan. Tiny and Dee were having a sense of happiness, looking around, knowing that they're helping the community and having their own office to work in and their own news station. But then a slump kind of hit Poor Magazine when the government started messing around and trying to take down what Poor Magazine was doing. Because Poor Magazine, for the poor people, they wouldn't dock the people if they were late. And the government, there was a rule for the government to have, if you're working there, you have to be docked if you're late. But Tiny and Dee refused to report the fellow poor people because, sometimes your child's sick, sometimes you're sick. It's nothing that you shouldn't get your pay docked, especially if you're already struggling for every cent. But eventually, they resisted, and the government pulled their money and funding they had, every cent, and made them sit in this room. I think Tiny called it the acquisition time. And they sat in that room for 3 months, continuously signing off these documents that the government was making them do for whatever need that they had to basically force them to dock, to write off the times that people were there. basically the government took all their money, and the funders that they had working with them left too when they found out about them losing all their money. So they all ran away. They quit. All the funders, but not Poor Magazine. They didn't give up though. They moved the locations eventually to a tinier room, no bigger than this one around us. And they started one of the first landless people's movement to reclaim the land. And what I mean by that, if you haven't been to one, which you should go to the next one, we'll have it posted up. It is where we go around, we have kind of prayer over the land, and then we go around to the rich, wealthy wealth hoarders, and we ask them to kindly redistribute their money for a great cause. Because they're sitting around with 3 houses, you know, watching TV. And, yeah, they started doing that. Eventually, they raised enough money to move to what most of the Poor Magazine family know as the Red Brick Building, down on Market Street and 16th, I think. Yeah, Market and 16th. 9th. They when they moved to the building, they started kind of gathering themselves up and pumping out more of the news and media, and from the dirt that they were stuck in from the government digging them in a hole. They it took a lot of planning and a lot of funding to eventually, we still have the Red Brick Building, but they eventually bought this land right here on 82 and MacArthur. And this was going to be the homefulness, the dream that all of Poor Magazine was always thinking of. And at this new land, while renovating it, trying to clean it up, a lot of the bickering neighbors, you know, looking at us, or inspectors, anybody walking by would look and just look at us as dirty, poor people. But we worked on it. We worked on hopefulness. It did not faze us. The criticism did not faze us. And eventually, we started working on a beautiful garden, the planning of the townhouses, and making hopefulness no longer a concept, but sort of like a safe place and like salvation for the poor people, and to know that they belong somewhere, and to give them kind of like hope. But it's not yet finished, as townhouses are still being built right now. The exterior is mostly done, and right now we're working on the interior. And yeah, but we're also working with the government throwing all these documents at us. But right now, we just got done with our library. We have farm animals, and soon to have real houses that we, poor house brothers and sisters, could start moving into and living in. Thank you for joining me. This is PNN, KXU 96.1, Solomon. See y'all next time. Peace out.
The game.
Oh,
You make moves to level up, but certain moves, like an addiction to cigarettes, can make you
Don't do
lose control of
cigarettes.
the game. And
My role's the best. Take away everything and make everybody feel high. But this is all what life is worth.
There's another issue. Hopefulness. We got our newspapers out right now. We're about to be on our 14th one. Just released the Poverty Scholarship book. Buy it. This has literally been working since Tiny was probably a little kid. All the writings and thoughts and dreams. Thank you.